Hello and welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. I'm Vee.
I'm John.
And we are two industry veterans who have been friends for over 25 years who love to recommend movies to you without spoiling them. No more so than in this episode in particular.
Absolutely. This might be the shortest episode of Movies You Missed podcast in 104 episodes.
This might be one of the most challenging episodes. I know we've had a couple of them so far where it's really easy to spoil the movie. This one certainly ranks up there as well, especially with yours.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I will have to agree with you there, V. These are tough ones to break down without giving anything away.
Even when taking notes during your movie, I only have a couple of bullet points because there were so many times where I was like, nope, can't write that down.
Yeah, exactly. These are going to be tough ones.
But hopefully, with our lack of spoilers, we will entice you to give both of these movies a watch. They are both certainly worth it.
Oh yeah, these are some magnificent films.
So welcome back, everyone. If it's your first episode or your 105th episode, we are very happy to have you here. And for our returning listeners, you know we like to discuss the new movies we saw in theaters or on streaming this week.
Oh yes, one of my favorite bits of Movies You Missed podcast. V, what'd you see?
I got really lucky and snagged some early access screening tickets to Guy Ritchie's new film, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, starring Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson, Henry Golding, Cary Elwes,
Oh,
and a whole bunch of great supporting actors. I had a wonderful time. It definitely reminded me a lot of Inglourious Basterds. It didn't actually quite feel like a Guy Ritchie film because it didn't have his editing style that he did in like Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels in his earlier films. It was more of a straightforward movie in terms of editing. It didn't have his style and flair to it as much, similar to when he made The Man from U.N.C.L.E., right? That didn't have his style of it either. But if you like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or Inglourious Basterds, or if you're like me and love the subgenre of films of Nazis getting killed, go watch this movie.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to that one. I know my wife wants to see it because it's based on a true story. So it seems like my wife will go see most based on true story types of movies. So I'm looking forward to taking her to see that one when that one opens.
Awesome. It's a story I had never heard of before, and it was so fun. The fact that it's a real story made it even better.
Hell yeah. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that's the movie I watched this week. What about you, John?
This week, my wife wanted to go see a movie, which, again, is a rare thing. So, of course, we went and did that. My wife told me about this movie about a month ago. It's called Wicked Little Letters. It stars Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley, and Timothy Spall. This is also a film based on a true story that I did not know about. Yeah, my wife said she saw a commercial for it when she was watching Midsomer Murders on Amazon Prime, and luckily it was playing in town here, so I took her to see it, and it was fantastic. It was hilarious. It was kind of a little bit twisted, and Olivia Colman is pretty much reliable just about any time these days. I really like Jessie Buckley, especially in the film Men from Alex Garland, and Timothy Spall. I have always been a fan of Timothy Spall as well. So overall, very good movie, fascinating true story. The movie opens up with, this movie is more true than you think, so it's like, oh wow, okay. And yeah, it was just a very entertaining 2 hours, a great female cast, and highly recommend if you guys are able to check it out in theaters. If not, when it's on streaming, a very worthy watch of a movie. It is R-rated, the language is very rough, but that's kind of the charm of the movie because they're all British, and I don't know, British people swearing always makes me laugh.
They're very good at it.
They very much are. They are very good at it, and my wife had a lot of laugh out loud moments, which is not something that she does often. Even when she's watching her favorite sitcom, she doesn't really laugh, but she was laughing a lot in this movie, and that could have been another reason why I enjoyed it very much. But it's a very good movie, highly recommended. Wicked Little Letters.
Awesome. I just saw that pop up in my theater app, but I hadn't heard anything about it, so that's good to know.
Yes, definitely worth seeing.
Well, I'm glad we both had fun at the theater this week.
As am I.
Well, those are the new movies we saw this week. I also love that segment. Definitely motivates me to stay on top of all the newest movies, more so than even before we started this podcast.
Hell yeah.
And now is that time to dive into the movies we picked this week. And I believe you go first.
Or last. Oh! No, you're right. I do go first, and I'm very excited because, like I said, this is going to be a tough one to break down, especially without spoiling anything. So, wish me luck, everybody.
Actually, because your movie is non-linear, you should probably go last.
That's a very, very good point.
The problem is I would forget, and then next week our order would be totally screwed up.
Oh, so you would totally be Leonard Shelby in this case then?
Oh, 100%.
All right. Well, if that's not a hint for anybody that's seen this movie that I picked, that we did give you a hint of last week, I chose the 2000 film starring Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, Joe Pantoliano, based on the short story by Jonathan Nolan, screenplay written and film directed by Christopher Nolan. This is Memento, everyone.
The film that made me a Christopher Nolan fan.
Oh yeah, this movie turned me into a Nolan fan as well. I remember when it came out, I remember seeing the trailer. My parents went and saw this movie, and my dad came home and was just completely enthralled by this movie and told me that when it came out, we'd check it out. For whatever reason, we didn't go to the theater to see it, so I didn't see this movie in theaters, but I did see it on DVD, and I've had the DVD since like 2001, and I have the special edition DVD. Now, if you know about Memento, and you know how this movie goes from beginning to end or from end to beginning, you know that and you know what? You may not know this, but on the special edition DVD on disc 2, there is a whole bunch of very interesting little quizzes and puzzles that you can do. And if you get a couple of the answers correct, it will bring you to a version of Memento that starts at the end of the movie and takes you to the beginning of the movie, if that makes any sense.
So it follows linear time.
It follows linear time.
Oh, brilliant.
I know a few people that have done it, and they said it makes no fucking sense. And I still want to watch it. I actually I'm not going to lie to you, this time around, I spent a good hour and a half on the special edition disc 2, answering questions, doing these puzzles, trying to get to the linear version of Memento, but all I could get to was the trailers, the production stills, and the Sundance Channel making of 30-minute documentary, which I had never seen until just the other night.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's good.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. So I'm going to spend some more time in the future and hopefully get to the linear version of this movie. But for those of you that don't know what Memento is, like I said, written and directed by Christopher Nolan based on a short story from his brother Jonathan Nolan. So for those of you that don't know anything about Memento, this is now the time to check out Memento. If you've seen any other Christopher Nolan movie, especially Tenet, Interstellar, Inception, and you know how crazy they are involving time, Memento is the first of the Christopher Nolan time mind benders that he has brought us. Memento is a movie about a character named Leonard Shelby. Leonard Shelby suffers from a short-term memory loss medical condition called antegrade amnesia. Now, this means that you cannot make any new memories past the last few minutes of your life. So you'll retain your long-term memory, but your short-term memory is pretty much gone to shit. And we find out the reason why he is suffering from this is because he was assaulted during the unfortunate murder of his wife. As we're learning the backstory of Leonard Shelby and the murder of his wife, and the unfortunate bringing about of this antegrade amnesia, we find out that Leonard has been on a quest to track down his wife's killer. He is staying in a hotel in the San Fernando Valley. This movie was shot in and around Burbank and Tujunga and Sunland. So, V, you and I are very familiar with that area of the world, Southern California, just off the 5 freeway.
Oh yeah, I recognize several locations in this film.
Me too, including the hotel that he stays at because I've shot at that hotel.
Nice.
Right off of Tujunga Boulevard, just along the railroad tracks in San Fernando Valley. Very beaten down, run down hotel. And the cool thing about that hotel is actually, while they were doing location scouting, Christopher Nolan really wanted a hotel that seemed very closed off from the outside world. So if you were to walk into this hotel, it kind of felt like an M.C. Escher painting. And if you watch the movie, it has a little bit of that M.C. Escher-esque kind of situation going on. There's a lot of big windowed rooms, there's a lot of closed off gates, and a lot of staircases as well. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Inception, fast forward like 15 years later after this movie came out.
See, folks, they shoot more than porn in the San Fernando Valley.
Indeed they do. He's got this friend of his named Teddy, played by Joe Pantoliano, that has been kind of helping him along a little bit. We also meet another friend of Leonard's named Natalie, who's played fantastically and horrifically by Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano had just finished coming off of the Matrix movie, and after Carrie-Anne Moss actually got cast in this movie, she suggested to Christopher Nolan that Joe Pantoliano would be great for Teddy. And Joe Pantoliano and Christopher Nolan had a meeting, and Nolan saw it, and of course now we have Joe Pantoliano as Teddy.
That's so funny. I never think of Joe as Cypher from The Matrix. I always think of him as the Deputy U.S. Marshal in The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, that's right. He is in The Fugitive. Hell yeah. I always associate him from a really terrible but very entertaining movie with David Arquette, Scott Conn, and Oliver Platt called Ready to Rumble. He actually plays the head of the World Wrestling Federation. He's got this really long-haired wig, and he walks around with a cowboy hat and a leather cowboy jacket. It's ridiculous. That movie, if you've ever seen it, Martin Landau and Rose McGowan are also in that movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is a really bad movie, but it's really entertaining at the same time. So actually, when I worked with Goldberg, the wrestler, on NCIS Los Angeles, I had nothing but fun talking to him about when he was shooting Ready to Rumble. But anyway,
awesome.
Getting back to Memento. Yeah, it was great. But getting back to Memento, so he's got this friend Teddy, he's got this friend Natalie, and both of them seem to be on the spectrum of wanting to help Leonard find the killer that killed his wife, but they both know that he has this condition where he cannot create new memories. And actually, even Teddy at one point shows up and he says, hey, and Leonard says to him, I have this condition. And then he goes, but I probably already told you that. And Teddy says, just about every time I see you. So we know that there's a history, but we don't know how long this history between Teddy and Leonard has been going on. We also don't know how long the history of Natalie and Leonard's been going on. As we get deeper into this movie, we start to, as an audience, really start to pick things apart. And that's the one really beautiful thing about this movie is there's a lot of this movie that's shot in color, and there's a lot of this movie that's shot in black and white. And the color stuff is the linear portion of the movie, whereas the black and white stuff is a little bit more of a narration, a narrative as to what is really going on in Leonard's head. And we also find out that with antegrade amnesia, new memories are created every 10 minutes. So all of the color segments in this movie are done in 10-minute chunks. And the black and white stuff is more of long-term memory of Leonard Shelby and him explaining to somebody on the phone exactly what he's trying to accomplish and what he has done in the past.
And with those memories, we get to see what really happened to Leonard during this attack.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty brutal. I mean, I can only imagine how much that would hurt and how fucking terrible it would be to not be able to create memories after 10 minutes.
I wonder if it'd be worse for the people around you.
I feel like it would, and that's another reason why this movie is so intense is because Teddy and Natalie both know that he can't form new memories, and there's a lot of frustration and anxiety building between both of these characters up against Shelby.
And as an audience member, you not only feel that tension, but you feel as out of sorts as Leonard is throughout the movie because of the way Nolan told the story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's really one of those movies that you really have to catch your breath during. This is one of those movies that while you're watching it, especially the way it's shot, like Christopher Nolan said that he used a lot of wide angles and shot a lot behind Guy Pearce while we were following him in the colored moments because he wanted us to be involved with Leonard Shelby, and then using a lot of the close-ups on the tattoos that he has on his hands and his arms. He's got tattoos on his legs that's like fact 1, fact 2, fact 3. He's got John G. raped and murdered my wife backwards on his neck, so when he looks in the mirror, he can see that that's written on him. We're also finding out that he is putting most of these tattoos on himself with pens in his hotel room, which is really trippy. It actually reminded me of the scene in The Fountain where Hugh Jackman is tattooing his wedding ring on his finger.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only way, I mean, that's basically his notebook, right? That's the only way he's keeping track of what's going on, which is such an aggressive way to do it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. On top of that, he has a Polaroid camera that he's taking Polaroids of and leaving himself notes on these Polaroids about the car that he's driving, about phone numbers, about who he can trust, who he can't trust. It's just such a mind fuck of a movie. And I've seen this movie like 25 times, at least. Yeah, I've watched this movie a lot. Ever since my dad showed it to me, it was one of those movies that opened my eyes to, not necessarily time travel, but the use of nonlinear time to tell a story.
I definitely feel unstable throughout this entire movie. I've only seen it 5 times now. It's still great. I hadn't seen it in a very, very long time, so it was great to revisit it this week. But the whole entire time, you are as unsure of what's going on as Leonard is. And I love that Christopher Nolan put us in the seat of the protagonist in this movie and just followed him along. Oh,
it's great, yeah. There's moments where a scene will begin, and he's sitting on a toilet in a hotel bathroom
or a
with
bar
a bottle
stool?
of whiskey. Yeah, or at a bar stool. But with a bottle of whiskey, he's looking at it, he's like, I don't feel drunk. And then we're at the beginning 8 minutes earlier, and then we end that next sequence with him sitting on the toilet with that bottle of whiskey going, I don't feel drunk. And then we go into a black and white moment, which also all of the black and white stuff and all of the narration in this movie was 100% improvised by Guy Pearce.
And with an American accent.
Because he's Australian. And I've always liked Guy Pearce. He's one of those actors that he reminds me very similarly to Aaron Eckhart. Like every time I see Aaron Eckhart in a movie, I like him. Every time I see Guy Pearce in a movie, I like him. And Guy Pearce actually came up with the idea similar to Jake Gyllenhaal in my pick 2 weeks ago to lose all the weight, to dye his hair white.
And I'm really shocked that Guy Pearce hasn't become a bigger actor because everything he's in, he gets all this critical acclaim. He's a great actor. I loved him in LA Confidential. I've loved him in this. He's been in so many really good movies, and he's always just bringing it for every performance.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just something that hasn't clicked, that hasn't allowed him to become this A-list movie star that I think he deserves to be.
That's interesting you say that because I really haven't seen him in a lot. I mean, I remember him in Prometheus.
One of my most hated films ever. He was the bad guy in Iron Man 3, which the movie sucked, but he was a pretty good bad guy.
Oh, that's right. He was, yeah. You know, it's funny. I did rewatch Iron Man 3 less than 3 months ago, and I got to tell you, I enjoyed it a lot more than I remember the first time. He's great in Lawless, though, with Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf. That movie is badass, and he is a badass lawman in Lawless.
He's also great in The Count of Monte Cristo.
No, he's not, because nobody is. That movie is a travesty.
I hate that movie. I know.
I do, because I've read the 1,500-page book, and the book is a masterpiece, and the movie's not. But there's apparently a new Count of Monte Cristo on the way, so maybe that will be a better retelling of the novel.
Especially since it's a French movie.
Now, I know I mentioned Aaron Eckhart just a little bit ago. Oddly enough, Aaron Eckhart was in consideration to play Leonard Shelby, along with Charlie Sheen. No idea how that happened.
No. Although I'm sure his memory sucks these days.
Oh, I can only imagine. That's probably why we haven't seen him in the last 10 years.
I hear he's sober now, which is great.
Well, good for him. Brad Pitt was also in very early consideration to play Leonard Shelby. He had to back out because of scheduling conflicts.
I could kind of see that if he uglied himself up a bit and lost some weight like Guy Pearce did.
Yeah, I think if he kind of looked like he did in California with Juliette Lewis, he could totally knock it out of the park.
Especially those red carpet photos where he's got that long, stringy blonde hair and the goatee, and he's just kind of scruffy looking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. I think that would have been... I think Brad Pitt could have totally done it, but I'm very glad that it was Guy Pearce. And after Brad Pitt actually passed on the role, Christopher Nolan wanted to go non-A-lister at the time, because the budget would be able to be distributed more evenly throughout the rest of the production. So that is a testament to Christopher Nolan and the fact that he knows how to stretch a budget. This budget was only $9 million.
Yeah, I was going to guess 10. This seems about right for this production.
There you go. And this, again, was Christopher Nolan's second movie. His first feature was a film called Following, which I still have not seen, but I own the DVD of, and I've been saying for years, I'm going to watch it, but I have not watched it yet. So one of these days I will, and we'll see how good that movie is, because if that's his worst one, then that's fine.
Yeah, I was blown away by this movie and Christopher Nolan. I was just like, who is this filmmaker when this movie came out?
Oh, yeah. And the story, like I mentioned before, was written by his brother, Jonathan Nolan. Both of these brothers actually wrote the movie together while they were on a road trip. And they had structured the entire movie from beginning to end or from end to beginning. And that was how the movie was actually brought about. This movie was nominated for 2 Oscars. Original screenplay. The only reason it got an original screenplay and not a best adapted screenplay was because the short story was not, in fact, published.
Okay.
Which I thought was actually kind of cool. However, it's still a semi-adapted screenplay, but it is still one of the most original screenplays that had come out in at least 15 years.
Well, and it was adapted from his own work, too, which is makes it more original in my mind, at least.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. Now, when we discussed Tenet, we discussed the fact that a lot of the stuff that is in reverse in that movie was actually shot with a reverse camera mag, right? The film was rolling reverse. It wasn't actually rolling forwards. The opening sequence of Memento was done the exact same way.
Nice. Test run.
Which, yes, exactly. So it makes me wonder, was Christopher Nolan thinking about Tenet while he was shooting Memento? I can only think, yes, he was.
It must have taken 15 years to plan that movie out anyway, so it makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Exactly. It's just so badass to see the opening sequence of this movie. And because, every time I've seen it, I'm like, oh, they just reversed the film. No, They shot it that way, but it was just done with a reverse mag in the camera.
Wow, that's cool.
Christopher Nolan was very adamant that the scenes with Leonard Shelby's wife be very realistic, be very much a bittersweet interaction between both of the characters, and not full scenes of them being in love and, sitting on the beach and like all this very typical relationship-y type stuff, right?
Romantic bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Which, there's a little bit of that, but really, Leonard really just talks about how much he loved his wife at one point in the movie, but we really are given a realistic look at a relationship. And I think the most realistic moment in the movie is when they're in the bedroom and she's reading a book and he's like, haven't you read that? She goes, yeah, I've read it before. He goes, but why would you do that? And she's like, I just enjoy it. Let me read, please. Like, my wife has said the exact same thing to me because my wife has read so many books multiple times. I'm like, but you've read it already. And then my wife goes, but you've seen that movie 30 times. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
That is exactly the argument I would make.
It's a great argument. It makes complete sense.
And I did love Georgia Fox as his wife. I thought she played that role really well.
Oh, yeah.
And I recognized her because she plays Sarah Seidel in the show CSI.
Indeed, yes. I remember when I first saw this movie, I watched CSI, I think, from seasons 1 to about 6. I never really kept up with that after that. But when I first saw this movie, I was like, oh, CSI, very cool. Mm-hmm. So that, I think Carrie-Anne Moss and Joey Pantoliano were the two faces I recognized when I watched this movie. And there's another actor in this movie, Mark Boone Jr. He plays the hotel clerk. Mm-hmm. He's got the big beard. He ended up being in Sons of Anarchy for however many seasons. I have had the pleasure of working with Mark Boone Jr. on a project many years ago. The guy was completely badass and let me take pictures with him. We joked around a bit and asked him about some insights on Sons of Anarchy. Even though I never watched Sons of Anarchy from the beginning to the end. I did see the last 5 episodes, though. Maybe one day I'll try it from the beginning, but what I saw, I really did enjoy.
It was a great show at the time. However, a lot of the decisions made in the show by the characters is so infuriating, I don't think I could ever watch it again.
Oh, interesting.
But now that makes sense, and it's a good reminder, that's why he shows up as Detective Flass in Batman Begins, because this is a Christopher Nolan movie, and Christopher clearly enjoyed working with him.
That's right. He is in Batman Begins. Hell yeah. He's got his hair brushed back and everything.
Oh, he's such a prick in that movie.
I agree. There's a phone number on one of the Polaroids in this movie, and that phone number is actually used in another movie from 1999 directed by David Fincher, starring Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter. That phone number belonged to Marla Singer in Fight Club.
8675309.
No.
That's not it? Oh, okay, sorry.
No, it's not. There were a few other actresses that were in consideration for Natalie. I actually could see all 3 of these ladies being Natalie because they're all pretty badass, and I only say all of them are badass because one of them is in a movie that I really liked that I didn't think I would like, and that would be Angelina Jolie was one of the actresses in consideration to play Natalie.
I can't picture her in that town, though.
Oh, I totally could. Are you kidding me? Especially because of Girl Interrupted, I could totally see Angelina Jolie in a movie like this.
Yeah, I guess she's just so gorgeous, even when she tries to ugly herself up a little bit, that she doesn't seem like an everyday woman.
I see what you're saying. I gotcha. The other actress, Famke Janssen.
God, she's so hot too. But
She's gorgeous.
See her. I mean, don't get me wrong. Carrie-Anne Moss is beautiful. I'm not discounting that.
No.
But Famke Janssen, I could see a little more. I think it's because
she was a Bond villain.
Oh God, she's such a good Bond villain. Yeah, I just for some reason can't picture Angelina Jolie doing this role.
I could see Famke Janssen over Angelina Jolie.
Exactly.
Now, this one I could see over both of them because I've seen her in several movies, and she's pretty universal. She can be entertaining and funny and sweet, and she can be really kind of eerie and dark and brooding. Ashley Judd.
Yeah, I could see Janine Garofalo.
Ooh, Janine Garofalo would be pretty good. Yeah. I could also see Helena Bonham Carter.
No, too weird.
You think? Too weird?
Yeah.
All right, well, all three of these actresses were in consideration before Carrie-Anne Moss did get the role. Very happy with Carrie-Anne Moss. She's awesome in this movie.
It was so great to see her again after The Matrix.
Absolutely. And apparently there's a fifth Matrix on the way.
I just saw that news and was like, what? Come on.
Yeah, Revolutions was very much a meh
fan service film.
Oh, for sure. There was one other actor that was in consideration to play Teddy before Joe Pantoliano was given the role. The only reason I can't see this actor is because his voice it just doesn't fit for me. And maybe it's because I've, again, seen this movie and been watching this movie for 25 years almost. But Dennis Leary was in consideration to play Teddy.
He's so good whenever he plays a cop, though.
He's awesome. I have nothing against Dennis Leary. I don't think his voice would fit the role.
But
I think you need a little bit of a squealy, high-pitched voice.
Okay. I was like, Joe Pantoliano's voice is cool? Like, what?
No. And nothing against Joe Pantoliano. Joey Pants, you're badass if you ever listen to this. Big fan of your work forever, especially in Ready to Rumble with Oliver Platt and David Arquette. But no, man. Dennis Leary, I think he's just a little bit too
aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think Joe Pantoliano has that comic sort of timing that really works. And I know Dennis Leary's done stand-up, and his stand-up is hysterical, but it's on the serious side of stand-up and not on the, goofy side of stand-up.
Right. And Joe, no matter what role he's doing, he always comes across as just a little weaselly.
Yeah, exactly, okay. Including as the captain in the Bad Boys films.
Woosah!
Woosah! How do you sink a boat? I love that line in Bad Boys 2. So great. The domestic box office for Memento. V, what do you think on a $9 million budget? Christopher Nolan's first theatrical film release. Joe Pantoliano, Carrie-Anne Moss, Guy Pearce.
I remember it being really popular. I'm going to guess $50 million.
Ooh, you were half correct. This is $25.5 million domestically.
Bummer.
Still a pretty good intake on domestic for a $9 million budget, especially since Nolan was technically an unknown at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the worldwide box office, V, what do you think?
$50 million.
You were $10 million short, $40 million worldwide box office gross. And like I mentioned, 2 Oscar nominations. It did not win either of those nominations. Now, since this movie is listed on IMDb and premiered in the year 2000, I'm going to do the year 2000 of highest grossing box office. V, can you guess what the highest grossing film of 2000 was? It is a Christmas movie. It's based on a very famous book.
It's not The Grinch. That was way later.
Are you sure?
It can't be the Jim Carrey, The Grinch. I thought that came out way later than that.
Why can't it be How the Grinch Stole Christmas starring Jim Carrey, directed by Ron Howard?
Are you serious? That's the highest grossing movie of 2000?
Highest grossing film of 2000, How the Grinch Stole Christmas at $251 million.
Shit. I thought that had come out like 5 or 6 years after that. That's funny.
Nope, 2000.
All right.
Second highest grossing film, Tom Cruise in the worst Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible 2.
That is the worst Mission Impossible film. It's one of the things that all of film fandom can agree upon, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Third highest grossing film, Ridley Scott directing Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe in Gladiator.
So good. I need to revisit that film, though.
I do, too, because I remember not liking it at all. The fourth highest grossing film, Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney in The Perfect Storm.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, I saw it one time. I remember enjoying it. Fifth highest grossing movie that brought Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller together, Meet the Parents.
Not a Ben Stiller movie I'm a fan of.
I'm not a big fan of it either. Any of the Parent Fokker movies, not at all.
Nope.
Sixth highest grossing film, Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, James Marsden, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Anna Paquin, and Famke Janssen. In the first X-Men, directed by Bryan Singer. Seventh highest grossing film of 2000, Scary Movie. The eighth highest grossing film of 2000, V, a pick of yours, What Lies Beneath.
So good. $100 million budget.
Yes, I know. Great movie. Number 9, highest grossing film of 2000, Dinosaur, the animated Disney movie, which I liked. I don't know if it holds up. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember liking it. The 10th highest grossing film, Julia Roberts and her Oscar-winning performance of Erin Brockovich.
The year Ellen Burstyn should have won for Requiem for a Dream instead.
Oh yeah, completely agree with you there. The 11th highest grossing film, Eddie Murphy, 6 different times in Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps. The 12th highest grossing film, McG bringing us the first Charlie's Angels with Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu.
Saw it once.
Oh, I've seen it many times. I like that one. I'm a big Lucy Liu fan.
Me too.
So, Yeah, I'll watch her all the time. Lucky Number 11, etc.
Then I gotta introduce you to Payback.
Oh, yes, please do.
She's a dominatrix in that film.
Oh. The 13th highest grossing film, Martin Lawrence and Nia Long in Big Mama's House.
Stupid.
Yeah, not a great movie. Paul Giamatti's also in that movie.
Oh my God. He's in so many random films.
Oh, yeah. The 14th highest grossing film, a very underrated high school football film starring Denzel Washington. Remember the Titans?
No one underrates that film.
Oh, I've talked to a lot of people that think it's very much not that great.
What?
I know. I don't know what their problem is.
I've never met a single person who doesn't like Remember the Titans.
You know what? Neither have I. I'm just messing around.
Oh, okay.
No, it's such a great movie. 15th highest grossing film. We discussed this movie when we were talking about Braveheart and Elizabeth, the Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Oh, yes, Braveheart 2.
Yeah. The 16th highest grossing film, another Mel Gibson movie, along with Helen Hunt, What Women Want.
I loved it when it came out. I have no idea if it holds up.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The 17th highest grossing film, Chicken Run. Number 19, Castaway. Number 21, Space Cowboys. Number 22, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette in the third Scream film.
Yes.
Number 23, Unbreakable. M. Night Shyamalan, Bruce Willis, and Samuel Jackson. I like Unbreakable. I know a lot of people do not.
I'm one of them.
Oh, that's too bad. 24th highest grossing film, Matthew McConaughey and John Bon Jovi in U571.
That's a good... And Bill Paxton.
Oh, that's right. Bill Paxton. Yes, of course. Great movie. 26th highest grossing film, Stuart Little. The 31st highest grossing film, Road Trip. Very entertaining movie. Number 32, Bring It On with Kirsten Dunst and Gabrielle Union.
Oh, awful.
Oh, I love that movie. It's not good, but I love it. But, I am a straight man, so of course I would.
Right.
Saw it opening night in theaters. I think I saw it twice or three times in theaters. God. Eliza Dushku, come on, how can you not?
True, she's awesome.
Number 33, Rules of Engagement, starring Samuel L. Jackson.
I've seen that movie a couple times. It's really good. Tommy Lee Jones is in it too.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen it. I got to check it out. The 34th highest grossing film, V, A Pick of Yours, starring Vincent D'Onofrio, Vince Vaughn, and Jennifer Lopez in a cell.
So good. That was my pick in episode 9 or something.
Yeah, it's been a minute. 53rd highest grossing film, one of the best sequels out of Pixar, Toy Story 2.
Yes.
58th highest grossing film, Benjamin Bratt, Michael Caine, and Sandra Bullock in Miss Congeniality.
That was only 58th?
Yeah, that was 58th.
That's bullshit. It should have been way higher. I love that movie.
I completely agree. It should have been way higher. So great. And the 63rd highest grossing film of 2000, because I got to mention it because it's so great and it's on the list, I believe, on your side. David Spade in The Emperor's New Groove.
Yes, one of my all-time favorite Disney movies.
Yes. So that is the year 2000, of which the movie was premiered. So now let's visit some aliens that have arrived. V, what do you say?
Sounds good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to revisit this film I haven't seen in quite some time. It's intense but great and just reminded me of my long love for Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah, it is a fantastic film. If you've never seen it, highly recommend it, especially if you are an Interstellar, Tenet, or Inception fan, or just a Christopher Nolan fan.
Or Guy Pearce fan.
Or Carrie-Anne Moss fan.
Or Joe Pantoliano fan.
Or a movie fan.
And where can we watch this film?
And if you would like to check the movie out, if you have not before this episode, it is available on Amazon Prime and Peacock. Like I said, I watched my special edition DVD copy. All right, V, it's yours. Take it away.
All right, we are fast-forwarding 16 years in the future. I enjoyed talking about Denis Villeneuve so much 2 weeks ago with our Jake Gyllenhaal episode. I really wanted to just revisit him again, and so I picked my favorite film of his. This stars Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, and Forest Whitaker. This is Arrival.
Oh, so excited to revisit this movie. This is... Oh, yeah.
So good. And I cannot believe it took me 105 episodes to pick this film because it's one of my all-time faves.
I'm pretty shocked at that, too. And honestly, I'm surprised it wasn't on my first, 30 episodes because I am a major fan of this movie as well.
I know. But unfortunately, I think that reflects how this is a little bit of a forgotten gem.
Oh, definitely.
Arrival starts out opening up to Amy Adams, who plays Dr. Louise Banks. She's a linguistics professor. And we spoke about Amy Adams in your pick of episode 68 because she starred in Enchanted.
Yeah.
She's at home alone, and the first 10 minutes of this movie or so are spent with her reflecting on past memories of a daughter that she had, who unfortunately passed away. And now she leads a very lonely life at home in this gorgeous house that I totally want to live in.
Oh, it's a bitchin' house.
But it's still very lonely. And she goes to work one day, but notices that everyone on campus is really distracted. Everybody's standing in front of TVs, and there's only like 4 students at her class that day. As she tries to start the class, every remaining student in there actually gets alerts on their phones, and they ask Banks to turn on the TV. And it turns out aliens have landed on Earth. Well,
yes, they have.
Almost. They're actually hovering, and I'll get into that in a second. 12 alien ships have parked themselves in various locations throughout the world. Everybody, of course, and rightly so, is completely freaking out. And only one day later, a Colonel Weber walks into Louise's office. Because, of course, Louise, she's a very practical person. She goes into work the next day, even though nobody else does on campus.
Oh, yeah.
And Colonel Weber mentions that she had actually previously worked for Army Intelligence about 3 years ago, translating some insurgents' video, and he mentions how she spoke Farsi and still has her top secret clearance. And he plays a tape for her, and it is immediately very apparent these are the aliens. It's only a couple second tape, and he asks her if she can translate it, and she says, absolutely not. This is just a tape. I have no references whatsoever. I'd have to see them. And he goes, nope, can't do it. And he pretty quickly leaves and says he's going to go to Berkeley instead. And this is so great because she's very subdued. She's a very quiet person, but she is assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells him, oh, well, ask that professor to translate war in Sanskrit and what the meaning is.
Yes.
And not a day later, Colonel Weber is back because, of course, that professor is not as good as Louise Banks. And he picks her up in a helicopter, and they travel to Montana, which is where the spaceship has landed in America. Now, I say landed, but as I mentioned, these spaceships are actually hovering about 20 to 40 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And that symbolizes that though the aliens have come to Earth, they are giving humans the opportunity to reach out and make contact.
Yeah, that is like one of the trippiest parts of the movie.
Yes, and I really like that Denis and Eric Heiser had written that into the movie, that these aliens weren't an invading force, they gave humans the opportunity to contact them or not.
I love how Colonel Weber says to Louise, every 18 hours they open the bottom of their ship for us to come inside.
Exactly,
it's like, whoa, okay.
And they've created an atmosphere for humans to come and quote-unquote converse with them or make contact with them.
Yes.
And in the helicopter ride out to Montana, Louise Banks meets another scientist. He's actually a theoretical physicist, and his name is Ian Donnelly, played by Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
Most people would recognize him as Hawkeye, the archer, in all of the Avengers movies. But I'll get into more of his credits because he has much better roles.
Ah, yes.
And I absolutely love how this movie portrays people meeting aliens for the first time, and how subsequent meetings with these aliens between Louise Banks and Ian Donnelly and the rest of the crew, they're still very nervous and have a lot of anxiety for weeks, right? This is so monumental. I love that it's not the second meeting when they're like, hey, how's it going, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I love that.
They keep it very authentic, I think, by having these people continue to weigh how important these conversations or these interactions with these aliens are. Because, of course, throughout the entire movie, in base camp in Montana, we're shown people walking by TVs and radios and things like that. And the whole world is just freaking out.
Oh, yeah. And I love how we are introduced to the atmosphere inside the spaceship when they decide to go up there with Louise and Ian. I remember the first time I saw it, like when they throw that glow stick, I was just like, wait a minute. Whoa.
Because the alien ship is actually egg-shaped. It's very vertical, but because they create artificial gravity for the humans, they throw a glow stick up, and then it lands on a side of the ship because that artificial gravity has started. So you actually jump up off a platform and then you land on your feet sideways. It's so trippy and so beautiful the first couple times you watch this.
Yeah, it's a jaw-dropper moment for sure. I remember when I first saw it, like I said, with the glow stick, I was like, wait a minute. And then they all jump up with their equipment and whatnot, and you're just kind of like, what is going on? I can only, because they're pretty much just like walking on the side of a wall at that point.
Yes, exactly. It's very much reminiscent of Inception when Joseph Gordon-Levitt is running along the hallway.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, totally. And again, Denny and Nolan.
Yes, two of my favorite directors.
I wonder how many conversations Denny had with Nolan while the production of Arrival was cracking down.
Oh, I hope they're buddies.
Oh, they definitely are. Didn't you hear on April 1st that they decided they were going to direct a movie together?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gullible, but not that gullible.
Well, it was an April Fool's joke.
Exactly. And at first, of course, Louise is really just trying to make contact with these aliens and trying to tell them very basic concepts. I'm a human. My name is Louise. This is Ian, right? And not only Colonel Weber, but also Agent Halpern of the CEI and all of the military intelligence there are pressuring her to ask the aliens, why are you here? What's your purpose? Do you have weapons? Are you aggressive? Of course, all of the standard protocol for military intelligence. And she's a voice of reason during a lot of these meetings.
Oh, definitely.
And of course, she's a world-renowned linguist. That's how the Army contacted her in the first place. And so she's written books and things like that.
Yeah.
And one of the opening lines in her books that Ian Donnelly reads on the helicopter ride is,
language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds the people together. It is the first weapon drawn in a conflict.
So flash forward a couple months. Of course, the world is still going to hell because people are still freaking out.
Yeah.
And Louise is really making progress. And as I said, there are 12 ships that have come to Earth in different locations. In the beginning, a lot of the countries are talking to each other, and Louise becomes the foremost expert on these aliens and these languages because she's making the most progress.
Yes.
And they're sharing a lot of data, but unfortunately things begin to escalate. And at one point, the term weapon is used by the aliens because they're trying to tell Louise something. And like all military characters in every movie we've ever seen about alien invasions, they of course overreact and start freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
And they really want to shut this project down now and back off. And Louise is really insistent, no, we need to understand what context they're using this word in. But unfortunately, Russia, China, Pakistan, they've already cut contact with the US and other allies saying, nope, these are clearly aggressive aliens. They want us. They're trying to dupe us. They have nefarious intentions. We're not doing this anymore.
Right.
And the rest of the movie is Louise continuing to try to communicate with these aliens while at the same time trying to convince not only the military superiors, but also the rest of the leaders in the world what's really going on, because she believes that these aliens have good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's up to us to watch this movie and see if she's correct.
That is absolutely correct indeed.
And there are many reasons why this movie is as spectacular as it is. Not only Amy Adams' Oscar-worthy performance, even though she didn't get nominated, which is complete bullshit.
Completely agree.
But also the cinematography, the score is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
This entire movie is a cinematic experience. And John, I'm so happy you're as big a fan of this movie as I am.
Yes, I am a major fan. I rented this movie on Redbox when it first came out, and I fell in love with it immediately. Before I returned it to Redbox, I had my wife sit down and watch it with me, because I watched it on my own in 2017. It was around February. And I completely fell in love with it. My wife loved the movie. She thought it was fantastic. And then that year, in 2017, I got it for Christmas and didn't watch it again until 2021.
Whoa.
It's kind of like a lot of other Denis Villeneuve movies that you can't watch all the time, but it's so affecting when you do watch it. The last time I watched it was in 2021, and I remember just loving it all over again, and revisiting it for this week's episode was another experience. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the movie is as you get older, this movie will be a different experience for you. And I love the way it's shot. The soundtrack is so fantastic. The score is wonderful. It's so alien and so emotional. And everything that Louise goes through to achieve her goal is mind-boggling. And I never am ashamed to say it, but I cried so hard watching this movie every time I've watched it.
Every time.
Every time. And completely agree with you that Amy Adams should have gotten an Oscar nomination the year that this came out, when it was nominated for Best Picture.
It was nominated for Best Picture, and I'll get into the other Oscar nominations as well. But yes, the crescendo of this movie is so monumental
Oh, yeah.
And so magnificent, your chest bursts.
Oh, yeah.
With emotion, and you cannot help but cry over this movie because it's such a spectacular story.
It really is. The tears come in the first 5 minutes, and then no more until the final 7 minutes. And those final 7 minutes, oh my God. Especially this time around, completely Oscar-worthy, but it just sends chills down my spine and makes my hair stand on end. And I love to cry in movies. I'm a big fan of when a movie will make me cry. And this movie, it's like Ben-Hur. It's so epic and it's so fantastic. Everything is so meticulous and so well done. I can't say it enough. It's so fucking good.
Perfectly put.
All right. Well, there you go. And I just love Forrest Whitaker, too. He's not in it a whole lot, but when he is in it, he's so effective. And you can just feel a lot of his humanity and his wanting to trust Louise in the scenarios that they're put in.
I love that he's not a stereotypical Army officer.
Yes, completely non-stereotypical. And I think that's another reason why I liked him so much. Because you sit there, you watch the movie, and you're anticipating him being like, no, shut the fuck up, this is what we got to do. No, but he's very much into listening to what she has to say. Because, again, she is who she is.
Yeah, she's the expert. And then his immediate reaction isn't, well, better get the rockets out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's got respect for her, which is great.
Yes. And the fact that Louise Banks is played by Amy Adams, I think, is another reason this movie is as good as it is.
Mm-hmm.
She was Denis' first choice for this film when he got attached to it.
Hell yeah.
Not only has she been enchanted, but she was also, I'll just get this out of the way, in all the DC movies.
Oh, yeah.
She plays Lois Lane. I love Amy Adams, but that was a horrible casting choice.
Yeah, not big fan of her as Lois Lane.
She and Superman had zero chemistry. But I've loved her in everything else she's been in. Vice.
Oh, I liked her in Vice.
American Hustle.
Yes.
Trouble with the Curve, which is a Clint Eastwood movie that also stars Justin Timberlake that's about baseball that's actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I never saw that one. I had no idea she was in that one.
It's another baseball movie I gotta get you to watch.
I guess so. I'll probably like it.
She's in The Master with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Never saw that. Heard it was great.
The Fighter.
Oh, she's great in that.
She's fantastic in that movie. God. Which I mentioned 2 weeks ago because Melissa Leo is also in The Fighter.
That's right.
Julie and Julia, Doubt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Talladega Nights, which is... Is
she really in that?
She's a super nerdy assistant with glasses. Oh my gosh, she's so good in it.
Oh my gosh.
And she's also in Junebug.
Oh, I remember Junebug. I never saw Junebug.
I haven't either, but that was actually her first Oscar nomination. But Junebug wasn't her last Oscar nomination. She's been nominated 6 times.
Oh, wow.
Vice, American Hustle, The Master, The Fighter, Doubt, and Junebug are her nominations. She has deserved to win so many times.
Oh, yeah.
She and Toni Collette not winning Oscars yet is my villain origin story. I get so pissed every time either of them either don't get nominated or don't win.
Yeah, she should have at least won something by now.
Yes, she's so talented. And Jeremy Renner plays Ian Donnelly. Other than being in the Marvel movies, he's in a great fun action movie called SWAT that I love.
Oh, yeah.
With Colin Farrell. It's really fun.
And LL Cool J.
That's right. And Michelle Rodriguez. And Samuel L. Jackson. There's a lot of people
that's right.
in that
Yeah,
movie.
SWAT. Oh, yeah, SWAT. I saw that in theaters, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
I've seen it repeatedly at home when I'm in the mood for a great action movie, and I am not sad to admit it.
Hell yeah.
He also is in Pink's music video for the song Trouble, and it's a very fun music video.
Is he seriously?
Uh-huh.
That's hilarious.
He's in a Charlize Theron movie called North Country. He's also in the sequel to your favorite horror movie.
28 Weeks Later.
That's right.
Hell yeah. Well, my favorite horror movie is 28 Days Later, but he's in the sequel, which is called 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah, he's in the sequel to your favorite movie.
Yes. Great sequel.
I haven't seen it.
You will.
Okay. He got his Oscar nomination for The Hurt Locker by Catherine Bigelow.
Great movie as well.
Great film. I loved him in The Town, which is on my list for the future.
Oh, yeah. The town is so damn good.
He's in 2 Mission Impossible movies, and I'm really sad he hasn't been in any since then, but I think it was because of his contract with Marvel. He was in Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and Rogue Nation.
Yeah, he has the best line in Ghost Protocol. The rope's not long enough.
No shit!
So awesome.
That is the best line in that movie. He's in a spin-off called The Bourne Legacy with Rachel Weisz, which isn't that bad. It's just really forgettable.
Okay.
This is actually the second time he and Amy Adams had worked together.
Oh, yeah?
Because he's also in American Hustle.
Really? I do not remember him in American Hustle.
And that came out in 2013, while Arrival came out in 2016.
Oh, wow. I liked American Hustle from what I remember.
I love that movie. Although David O. Russell is such a prick, it's hard to revisit it.
Yeah, I know. That movie actually turned me on to Jennifer Lawrence.
Same.
I liked her in that movie a lot.
Also made Amy Adams cry and made her almost want to quit acting because David O. Russell treated her so poorly.
Oh, what a dingleberry.
Exactly. He's also in Wind River, a movie I kind of want to put on the list, even though it is brutal.
Wind River, I had a lot of... Wind River's a good movie. And the reason why I was very on the fence about it is because there's a rape scene in that movie.
Yes.
And I'm not a... But I had a lot of female friends of mine tell me to see Wind River, that they had seen it and that they really loved it. And I was like, all right. All right. And I watched it and I thought it was a great movie.
It's a fantastic film.
But it is brutal.
It is brutal. If you liked Prisoners from a couple weeks ago, you'll like Wind River, actually.
That's a good point, yeah.
He's also in a great comedy called Tag.
Oh, Tag is hysterical.
I was pleasantly
Gosh.
surprised.
I watched that on a plane and I had to bite my fist because I was laughing too loud.
Wasn't there an old lady sitting next to you?
No, that was during Booksmart. I was going to say, it's a similar situation to when I watched Booksmart on a plane. I was laughing so loud that I had to quiet myself watching Tag. John Hamm, Jake Johnson, Ed Helms, Jeremy Renner, and Hannibal Buress. That movie, Tag, is hilarious.
It really is.
Based on a true story.
Which makes it better.
So awesome.
And I love Jeremy Renner's character in that movie.
Oh, yeah. So funny.
Jeremy Renner, as many of you know, had a horrific snowplow accident.
Oh, that's right.
Very recently. Thankfully, he's doing very well, and he's actually back at work.
Good for him.
He's done several seasons of the show Mayor of Kingstown.
Oh, yeah. I've actually wanted to check that out.
He's now back on set, and that's back in production. I'm so happy to hear it. That show is really good.
I've been wanting to check that one out. I should start that one. I'm not a big series person, but there are some that I'll give a shot.
It's dark and gritty, and it's awesome. Highly recommend it.
Nice.
And as you said, Forrest Whitaker is great in this film.
Oh, yeah.
He plays Colonel Weber, one of my least liked English words. I hate the word colonel because it's spelled so stupidly.
Colonel?
Yeah, it's so dumb. But Forrest Whitaker has been in some great films.
Oh, yeah.
Platoon, Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams.
Yes, that is a great movie.
Phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
Then he joined John Travolta again in one of the worst movies ever made. Unequivocally, that is a statement of fact. Because he was in Battlefield Earth.
Oh, is he a Scientologist?
I don't think so. I think
okay.
John Travolta probably invited him on to the movie after Phenomenon is what I think happened. Yeah.
Okay.
But thankfully he redeemed himself because he plays Idi Amin in Last King of Scotland.
Ooh, yeah. Brutal movie.
He's also in The Butler, Rogue One, a movie we both love.
Hell yes. I love him in Rogue One.
And he's also in Black Panther.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I don't remember him in Black Panther.
Yeah, he plays one of the elders at the waterfall scene with the fights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The other actor I want to talk about in this film is Michael Stuhlbarg. He plays Agent Halpern from the CIA.
Yeah.
He's in the movie A Serious Man.
Yes.
He plays Ross Dean in Boardwalk Empire, another gritty, dark show that's really good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I never got past season 1.
He also plays the father in Call Me By Your Name.
Ah, all right. Pedophile movie.
Yeah, that's true. But you and I would recognize him because he plays Griffin, the alien, in MIB3.
Hell yeah, he does.
I loved him in Men in Black 3.
He was so good.
He is.
He's also in a very forgotten but beautiful Scorsese film called Hugo.
which I believe is on your list.
It is on my list. It will likely be on my Christmas choosings of 2024.
2 weeks ago, I picked my first Denis Villeneuve movie, Prisoners. But I'll probably go through most of them because, as I've said before, he is one of my all-time favorite directors. His other movies are Incendies, Enemy, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, and the Dune movies.
Yeah.
Now, when I was reading about the writer for this movie, I was a bit shocked that he was able to write this movie because Eric Heiserer has only written the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Final Destination 5, the remake of The Thing, which is blasphemous, and Bird Box.
Oh, God, he wrote Bird Box?
Right? I'm like, where did this come from?
Wow.
But it's because this movie is actually based on a short story novella called The Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang.
Ah, okay.
So now that makes more sense. No offense, Eric, but it was just Arrival is a different level than the other movies you'd written.
It absolutely is.
Yes.
Yeah, especially Bird Box. What a junk movie that is.
I know you hate it.
I couldn't stand it.
And this is director Denis Villeneuve's first PG-13 film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because unlike Sicario, it doesn't have a bunch of dead bodies in the wall. Sicario is so brutal.
Oh, yeah. Sicario is nuts. So good, though.
It is. It's probably going to be on the list at some point. I love that movie so much.
So good.
Denis Villeneuve and Eric Heiserer worked together to create a fully functioning visual alien language. So like a lot of other movies that we love, it was a real language that they came up with, which is awesome.
That is killer, similar to The Fifth Element.
Yes. And Game of Thrones and Star Trek and all these other great sci-fi and fantasy staples that actually created languages for their characters.
Hell yeah.
And the rest of the research and mock-up of this movie was also accurate. They consulted scientific experts to make sure this was the most science nonfiction sci-fi movie they could make.
Really?
Which is great, yes. Denis especially studied the hell out of theories and science to make sure this could be a realistic story.
Oh, nice.
And the inky circular alien written language was actually created by an artist named Martine Bertrand. And I really want to look up her other art now. And she's actually married to Patrice Vermette, who is a production designer. He was the production designer for Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival. So they worked together on this film.
Yeah.
Vice. He won the production design Oscar for Dune.
Oh, sweet.
And he was the production designer on Dune 2.
Hell yeah.
Yes, so a very artistic, creative marriage right there.
Definitely.
And there are two aliens that Louise and Ian predominantly communicate with in this movie. And in the very beginning, Ian suggests that they name them Abbott and Costello.
Yes.
And not only is that just funny, right, because they're a classic comedy team.
Right.
But there's actually an inside joke because Abbott and Costello's famous skit, Who's On First, is a skit about miscommunication.
Ah.
And that's the whole theme of this movie. I was like, how brilliant to just put that in.
That is pretty badass.
So
I like that.
Yeah, there's layers to that joke.
Hell yeah.
And Montana is also the site of first contact between humans and aliens in another movie.
Oh, yeah?
It's a franchise film.
Okay.
It stars Professor X.
Star Trek?
It's a movie on your list.
Oh, is it First Contact?
It is First Contact, yeah.
Ah.
That also takes place in Montana.
Oh, yeah, that's right. In First Contact, the bar that they all hang out in is in Montana.
I love the music he uses.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And as you said, this movie was nominated for Best Picture in 2017 Oscars. It was also nominated for 7 more Oscars.
Yeah, it was a very well-nominated film that year.
Best Directing, which Denis totally deserves an Oscar at this point for all of the spectacular work he's done.
Definitely.
Best Adapted Screenplay, because again, I said it was adapted from a novella.
Right.
Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing. 2 awards, remember? Two categories.
Yeah. That's right.
Best Production Design, as I said, for Patrice. And Best Cinematography by Bradford Young.
Nice.
He became the first African-American cinematographer to be nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, wow. Congrats to him.
He was also the first person of color to be nominated in this category since 1998 when Remy Adefarasin was nominated for a recent pick of mine. It was my partner to Braveheart.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Sweet.
Remy was the first person of color. He was the first black man to ever be nominated for Best Cinematography. He's from the UK. And so Bradford Young became the first African-American cinematographer to be nominated in this category.
Hell yeah. Congrats to him.
Yes, Bradford Young has also been the director of photography on A Most Violent Year, Selma.
Oh, nice.
And Solo, a Star Wars movie.
Ah.
And as we said, the score in this movie is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Johan Johansson was the composer, which is awesome. I love that name. It's kind of like Hoyte van Hoytema. Yeah, exactly. Who's also a great cinematographer. Johan Johansson was the composer for Prisoners, The Theory of Everything, and Sicario.
Oh, nice.
He was actually going to be the composer on Blade Runner 2049 right after this movie, but unfortunately there were creative differences between he and Denis.
Oh, whoa.
And in 2018, he died at the age of 48.
Oh, damn.
Unfortunately, he had some drug problems, and it really derailed not only his career, but also his life, and that's a total bummer because he was a great composer.
Yeah, that really sucks. Damn.
However, there's a classical music piece that bookends this film. In the beginning and at the end of this film, On the Nature of Daylight by Max Richter is played. That is one of my sister Shannon's favorite artists all time. She always has a Max Richter playlist going whenever I go over to her house. She loves him so much, and I always think of her whenever I hear one of his songs. And actually, On the Nature of Daylight was also played in one of my previous picks because it was used in Shutter Island.
Oh, yeah, that is some haunting music.
It really is. It's beautiful, though.
It really is.
However, its prominent use in this film is the reason why the score of this movie was ineligible for an Oscar nomination.
Oh,
it's a bummer.
Damn, that is really too bad.
As I said, Amy Adams was Denis' very first choice for this movie. She agreed to the role within 24 hours of receiving the script.
Nice.
And she received nominations for Best Actress at the Golden Globes, BAFTAs, Screen Actors Guild Awards, Critics' Choice Awards, and even the Saturn Awards.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, she wasn't nominated for an Academy Award.
Sounds like Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler.
Yeah. And there was another snubbed category at the Oscars for this film.
Oh, yeah?
It was not nominated for Best Visual Effects.
Oh, really?
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that is a bit wild to hear.
Because the effects in this movie are fantastic.
They are damn good.
And even though this movie is already 8 years old, the visual effects hold up so well.
That is for sure.
And the last piece of trivia I want to share is Ted Chiang, who wrote the story the film is based upon. He approves of Arrival.
Nice.
He has said, I think it's that rarest of the rare in that it's both a good movie and a good adaptation. And when you consider the track record of adaptations of written science fiction, that's almost literally a miracle.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's Arrival. Came out in 2016. It had a budget of only $47 million.
Whoa, really?
Which, given all the visual effects, is very impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
Its U.S. box office was $100 million.
Nice.
And worldwide, it made $203 million on a $47 million budget.
Damn, it did pretty good then.
It did very well, and I'm so happy for that because it is a phenomenal film that I love dearly. I'm so glad you love it too and that we can share it with our audience.
I'm so glad you picked it. It is such a great movie. I hope for those that have not seen it, you give it a shot. It's worth every minute of your time.
And the good news is streaming services love this movie too because it's on Pluto, Apple TV, Showtime, and Paramount Plus.
Nice. I watched my Blu-ray copy.
Fantastic.
Sophie, I'm curious, would you watch Arrival with your grandmother?
I would. She was into sci-fi.
Yeah, I'd watch it with mine too.
Yeah, as I said, it's Denis' first PG-13 film. There's no sex in it. There's hardly any violence.
Yeah.
It's intense, but it's really fantastic.
Definitely.
I think 13 and above, just because the aliens might be a little scary for children younger than that.
Yeah, sure.
And John, would you watch Memento with your grandma?
I think I did like once or twice, actually.
Nice.
I think, yeah, it was one of those movies that my grandma was like, that's weird, but, you know, she watched it because I liked it.
Definitely a film for people 17 and above, I think, though.
I would agree with you on that one, yes.
Well, those are our picks for this week. We hope you give them a shot or revisit them if you've seen them already. And John, do you want to tell our audience what we're doing next week?
We're jumping into some gangster films next week. I'm excited because I've not seen your pick, V, and I've only seen my pick twice. Once in theaters and then immediately after it came out on DVD. I am going to go with another favorite actor of mine, Denzel Washington. This also stars Russell Crowe, Josh Brolin, Carla Gugino, and Idris Elba. This is directed by Ridley Scott. This is American Gangster. And if you want to follow along, it is currently streaming on HBO Max. And V, what are you choosing to go along with American Gangster?
I'm excited that neither one of us was cliche and picked Goodfellas.
I know.
Instead, I picked the 1987 classic with Kevin Costner. This is my second Kevin Costner film that I've chosen because back at our very first Father's Day episodes, only about a month after we started this podcast, I picked Field of Dreams. This movie instead is a fantastic mob movie about Al Capone. It stars not only Kevin Costner, but also Sean Connery, Robert De Niro, Andy Garcia. This is The Untouchables.
Ooh, I'm excited. I've not seen it before.
I am so stoked to introduce you to this movie. You can watch it if you have an MGM, Paramount Plus, or Prime subscription.
All right. Well, I'll watch it on one of those streamers.
Fantastic. Well, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. We always love recommending movies to you. And please feel free to follow us along during the week on all of our social media profiles. We are at Movies You Miss Pod. You can also rate, review, and subscribe to our show on any podcast app. And as we always like to finish with, film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
time is linear.
Just Christopher Nolan alone can prove that true.
Exactly.
I prefer his non-linear movies, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot for this week's episode, John. I always love the excuse to talk about Denis and Christopher Nolan, fantastic directors who put forth just pure art.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I love that we finally got to pair them together.
Yes, me too. Well, thanks, everyone, and hope to catch you next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.